Alright, what's going on YouTube? In today's video I'm taking apart these 22 electric motors and salvaging the copper windings inside of them. These are all pretty much burnt out according to the guy that I got them off of for a really good price. And I had a really good time doing this. And I actually recorded this video about a year ago in March whenever COVID first started and everybody was in lockdown. I just never got around to posting it, or actually making a YouTube channel. So here we are. And here's a little walk around just showing you guys what I'm working with. And I use this motor as my representation on how I was doing it for all the other motors. So I would do my first step on this one, and then I would go to the other ones and do a time lapse and do it on all of them. And the first step in the process is where I took off this metal guard that had the covering for the little fan that was inside the motor. Then I pulled out the impact again and pulled out these long bolts that hold everything together. Next up, it was taking this little fan doohickey thing off, which was pretty easy really. All you had to do was remove that screw and then use a flathead screwdriver as kind of a pry bar, then you could pry it right off. Next thing I did was pulled one of the two sides off. I did the smaller one first and revealed the nice copper windings in there. Those actually looked pretty good, and honestly some of these might have been good motors, I don't even know. But anyway, yeah, this stuff was cast aluminum, and I ended up throwing that all to the side and got a decent little barrel of it by the time this was all over with. Alright, and with the small side completed and them stacked up and looking all nice and pretty there, it was time to move on to the bigger side. And the first thing I had to do to get those off though was I had to take off these little small bolts, and that's what I did in my next step. Those tiny bolts out of the way, all you had to do is tap it with a hammer and you could get this big piece off, and it was on to the races doing the rest. Next step, pretty simple, busting out the core. Now this brings us to the second most tedious task out of this whole process, and that was where I got the cutoff wheel and I ended up cutting through. There were a little hole right there that I was able to get into and use that as my kind of guide to cut through. So that's what I ended up doing. And with that splice put all the way through the casing, you were able to slide it around a little bit and eventually kind of pop it out.
Now that's just about all copper, isn't it?
Alright, now I was on to doing all these here. And I'm telling you, this about burnt my grinder up and I had to stop a couple times to let it just air out a little bit. But lo and behold, after about a little over an hour, I was able to get all these done and got it all completed. And always wear your face shield, guys. No matter how good you are or how long you've been operating one of these things, anything can always happen. You don't want a face full of cutoff wheel to end your day. That sucked. Oh, yeah. And with the construction of the Great Pyramid of electric motors, since all the splices were put in them, it was now time to finagle them all around. I had to use a little bit of a maul sometimes, and I just had to get those centers out. And some of these opened up easier than others. Sometimes I had to go into the compartment where all of the electrical components were at, and I had to cut them out and just kind of get them to where I could start sliding around the outside casing and then pull it off the core, or the center, or whatever you call it. Alright, and the most tedious process in this whole thing was definitely doing this. I was having to cut off one side of the wire so I could pull it out on the other side without having anything holding it together. So I went through with my grinder, once again, pretty much dang near burning up the thing, and I had to cut off one side to make sure that I was able to pull it out. And after I cut about 3 or 4 of these apart, I realized I was throwing a ton of copper dust everywhere, so I decided at the end to try and sweep up some of it and keep as much of it as I could. I don't know, I figured I could try and use this for a melting project in the future. But anyway, I threw down a trash bag on the ground, and that's where I ended up getting most of my stuff. And I ended up throwing it all in a jar, and you'll see that here in a second. It's pretty cool. A little bit extra tedious process, but hey, I thought it was cool to keep that all, so I decided to do it. Alright, with the dust all cleaned up, it was time to go to probably the third most tedious thing in this whole process, and that was removing the windings. I ended up using this large wrench and was able to use it as kind of a chisel, and I just hacked it out with a hammer. I did this on all of these. I had this recorded also of me doing every single one of them, but I accidentally deleted the video because I was running out of space on my laptop. So, yeah, I wish I had it, but I don't. Anyway, this is how I did it. And once everything was said and done, there's the extracted copper. Sometimes I would take it and kind of curl it up into those little windings like that and throw them in a bucket. But primarily I would just kind of lay them out like this. And then when it was all said and done, there's the final product. I think I ended up having 363 total pounds of copper, and that was from the 22 electric motors, and I think each of them weighed about 120 pounds each in total. And there was also, as you can see, kind of 2 bucket shapes right there. That was from mostly those motors that I took apart in this video, but there were a couple extra thrown in there as well. But yeah, 360 some pounds of copper, and it was awesome. I ended up taking this to the scrapyard and scrapping it. Unfortunately, I did it before the prices got super high like they are now, but oh well. Overall, it was really fun, and I'm hoping to be able to find some more copper bearing motors like this in the future. If you guys enjoyed this video, give it a like and subscribe to the channel. Hopefully, I'm going to be doing more scrapping videos along with the firewood videos that I usually do. But anyways, thanks for watching. Have a good one.